Day 1 of making Elsa's white dress.
The plan for this is to make it as bougie as possible. We got the beaded fabric, we've got the pearls, we've got the Swarovski, and I spent way too much money on embroidery files. We're going to start by marking and cutting our bodice lining. Now I'm going to repeat with the fashion fabric. I'm going to cut my neckline out of invisible mesh. Quickie break. Let's sew. That looks pretty good. Let's add the embroidery. So these suckers are on.
And there you have it, the Elsa bodice. Come back for part 2. Day 2 of making Elsa's white dress.
Let it sew. I'm going to show you guys how to finish the bodice.
Here's the embroidery for our sleeves. I'm going to cut these out and sew them onto the sleeves. While I do that, I'm also going to run the embroidery for the back. These are on. Let's add the pearls. This takes literally forever. Sleeves look good. Let's move on to the back.
Quickie break!
For the back, the first thing I'm going to do is remove all the beads from the seam. Now we'll sew our fashion fabric to our lining. Now add your invisible mesh. Let's sew the bodice together. And when it's sewed together, fit it to the mannequin. And I know you guys wanted to see it with the bling filter, so here it is. Come back for part 3. Day 3 of making Elsa's white dress. We're going to ombre dye some fabric. This is either going to go really well or really bad. We're going to start with a sample. As you can see, it's kind of yellow. We're going to use some whitewash treatment to take the color out. You're going to want to add this to some hot water and heat it on the stove. Add your fabric. Now we wait.
Quickie break!
12 out of 10, that worked well. Now let's try our dye. This is hot water, soap, and dye. Put your fabric halfway in and halfway out. And wait. This came out really nice. So let's repeat the process for the real thing. So far, so good. And there it is, ombre dyed and rhinestones. Come back for part 4. Day 4 of making Elsa's white dress. This part's going to be a wild ride.
First, we're going to cut our pattern pieces. Here are our skirt pieces. We're going to do 2 dye baths. One for the front and one for the back. I was able to make purple. I don't hate it, so I'm going to make a second set of sleeves in this color.
And now we wait.
Now that it's dry, it's time for the embroidery.
Quickie break.
We're going to sew our darts in. Now stitch the front together.
Stitch your skirt together.
I'm going to sew the bodice to the skirt.
So today I woke up with tons of creative energy and I thought, okay, where will it take me? I found this super neat chainmail-like fabric and this really cute floral. So let's do a medieval look. This would make a really nice Renaissance dress or festival dress or maybe even for prom. We're also going to make some big sleeves out of this too. Now we're going to stitch our bodice pieces together. The cups are not easy. After all that struggling, it's time for the buns. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with this, so let's move on to the skirt.
Quickie break?
All right, let's gather 3 yards. Here's the skirt gathered. Let's add it to the bodice. That looks really nice, so it's time to put some sleeves on. You're going to sew casing for the elastic on the top. Gather the bottom.
Add a cuff.
And there she is. All done.
Day 1 of making Catherine's dress from Vampire Diaries.
This is the pattern I'm using for the bodice. I got it from Truly Victorian.
Oh look, pattern pieces. Now let's dye some fabric. Lace. Synthetic dye. Tamale pot. Fill. Add dye and fabric.
While this cooks, we'll cut our bodice.
Fabric.
Now we're going to cut our pattern.
Let's cut our lining.
Quickie break.
Now we're going to sew everything together, starting with your lining. Sew down your excess seam allowance to create a boning channel.
Time for bones.
Repeat for the bodice. Attach your lining to your bodice. Here's that dyed lace. Attach the lace to the bottom of the sleeve. Now gather your sleeve to fit the armhole. Now sew your sleeve to the bodice. Finally, add the lace to the neck and hem. And there she is. Come back for part 2.
Day 2 of making Catherine's dress from Vampire Diaries. First things first, we have to get the circumference of the hoop skirt. Our diameter is 44, which gives us this. So we'll need 4 yards. Here it is cut. Let's put it on the mannequin. Now we're going to cut the bottom off because we have to use it. Now we're going to make our pleats. Fold down 4 yards and cut it in strips. We're going to sew all the strips together and then hem. Next, you're going to rip it out when you've hemmed it the wrong way. We're going to use our iron and turn these into pleats. Corky break. Pleat your fabric. All our pleats are done, so let's sew it to the fabric. 1 set, 2 layers.
On layer 3, I ran out of pleats. All 3 layers on, it's time for trim. Add a ribbon in your waistband.
And there she is. Come back for part 3.
Day 3 of making Catherine's dress from Vampire Diaries.
First things first, you're going to need a pattern. I'm doing a modified version of this one.
Lay out your pattern. I'm modifying this by cutting it on the fold. Don't forget to cut the other pieces.
We used all 10 yards.
All cut out, make sure to mark your pleats. Now we're going to sew down our pleats. Looks good, it's time for trim. Start with your lace trim. Now add your ruffle. And there she is, all done. This is a Kylo Ren inspired look, day 1.
This is the sketch we're going to work off of. I'm going to start with the bodice. To do that, we need a pattern. This one is free. Here are all the pieces. We're going to cut 2 layers, one from silk and one from lining. With the pieces cut, we're going to start with the embroidery on the front. So while the embroidery runs, we're going to stitch together the rest of the pieces. Don't forget to sew in your boning channel. We're going to sew the top to the lining.
Quickie break.
Time for bones.
We're going to sew our edge up.
Now add your embroidery.
Let's add grommets.
Finally, add some beads. And there you have it. Come back for part 2. This is a Kylo Ren inspired outfit, day 2. So just a reminder, we're going to work on that part. Yeah. So we're going to cut the side pocket things out of here. They're going to go under the skirt to give it some poof. So there's the boning channels and I've marked them out like this. Now we're going to sew them down. Really easy. Add your pleats. Add your ties. Okay, put your bones in. I didn't have a corgi, so hi Apollo. And there are the bones, and then that's what they look like. Now it's time to do the skirt, which is just like 4 yards of silk. I did this little waistband thingy, which is, yeah, I don't know the technical term for it, but I put a ribbon in it, and that's how I did my skirt waistband. I then stitched the back up like that. Not in love with the way the corset sits. It looks funky. So I chopped it up like that and added the binding again, and it looked way better. Finally, I added the 2 layers and some more embroidery, and come back for part 3. Thank you. This is a Kylo Ren inspired outfit, day 3. We are going to be working on this part today. And this is the pattern we're going to use. So I've marked out my pattern pieces and I'm going to put them in the hoop here. Now we're going to do our embroidery. Corgi break. After some finagling, I've cut out our pieces.
Now we'll stitch them together.
That looks good. It's time for the cape. For the cape, we're going to cut 2 4-yard pieces. We're going to gather these on the short edge.
Now stitch it down to your corset.
And there you have it, your Kylo Ren look. Today we're going to make a modified version of the Laura dress using this sequin fabric. We're going to cut our top. Here are your pattern pieces. Now we're going to cut a lining so it's not itchy. I'm modifying the skirt by making it go all the way to the floor. You're going to want to mark your darts.
You're going to start by carefully sewing your darts. Then I slowly sew the bodice together. Then I stitch together the lining really fast.
Quickie break. Be prepared to break needles. Flip your lining into the inside.
We're moving on to the skirt, starting with the darts. Carefully stitch your skirt together.
Look at that seam match. Now we're going to sew the bodice to the skirt.
This is also slow and tedious. And there you go, a super easy, super quick dress pattern for anyone to try.